migliori firme con sconti fino al 70% direttamente a casa tua? Ora si può! Con il servizio shopping da casa di MacArthurGlen La Reggia Designer Outlet puoi acquistare le collezioni primavera-estate comodamente dal tuo divano. Vai su lareggiadesigneroutlet.it, contatta il tuo brand preferito e completa l'acquisto online. Le firme che ami, mai così vicine a te.
Hello everyone and welcome to the Jeffrey Epstein Show. I'm your host, Bobbycapucci, and this is a morning update. So the bail package that we expected Ghislaine Maxwell to present to the court has been presented. Now it looks like $28.5 million is the final number of the package. And we know that her husband, Scott Borgerson, is on the line for most of this money. Now, we went into depth about this topic a couple of days ago when it was first revealed that she was going after bail, right? But you all know that I am a stickler for context. So we're going to dig into this article from ABC News and James Hill and add a couple of pieces that were missing from the original reporting. There's also a very, very familiar pattern with this request for bail. And it follows the same exact scenario that Jeffrey Epstein attempted to put into play to catch bail for himself. Remember the letter that was put into action on his behalf by, Glenn and Eva Dubin, a bunch of other people? The same has occurred here. And Borgerson and others are gushing about how great of a person Ghislaine Maxwell is. As if her personal relationships with Scott Borgerson or any of her so-called friends is going to be the thing that moves the lever and makes people say, you know what? Maybe we've been wrong this whole time. Maybe we have just been wrong this whole entire time. And Ghislaine Maxwell is, she's really a good person. Listen to what Scott Borgerson has to say. And her kids, her stepkids, they miss her, so she has to be a good person, right? That's what they're attempting to do. And they're trying to refurbish Ghislaine Maxwell and her reputation via this letter. What they'll say is, the media has it all misconstrued. It's the media's fault. The media is unfairly persecuting her. And while the media does do that a lot, I will admit to that. In this case, it's not like we're following this case as it's occurring, right? There are years and years and years and investigation after investigation that was killed into these people. So there is a bunch of circumstantial evidence. This is a lot more than just he said, she said. And if it was just a he said, she said type of situation, I certainly wouldn't be spending this amount of time on this story. This goes way deeper than that. There are so many levels to this. And Ghislaine Maxwell is facing a mountain of evidence, circumstantial and otherwise. And we're not just talking about witness statements here. There are going to be actual girls who are now women who were allegedly abused by Ghislaine Maxwell who take that stand and stare out across at her and the jurors, and they're going to lay it all on the line, and they're going to lay it all out about Maxwell's behavior, about what Maxwell was doing while she was with Jeffrey Epstein. And then all of the letters and all of the gush pieces that you can wrangle your friends into writing for you aren't going to be enough to save the day. I don't care what sort of statements your friends are writing about you. Let's see what the impact statements from the survivors have to say about you. Of course your friends are going to carry water for you. Of course your friends are going to say, she could have never done that. That's not the Ghislaine Maxwell we know. But in reality, how many people really know everyone they come into contact with or people that they call their friends. A lot of people have multiple faces, folks, and they can fake the funk real well. A lot of chameleons out there. Not everybody is what they seem. And especially when we're talking about people like Ghislaine Maxwell, Jeffrey Epstein, and those that roll with them. They have one face, right? The face that they wear when they're in public and they're trying to, buffer their reputations. And then there's the other face, when they think all the lights are down and nobody's paying attention. That's their true face, the true face that is revealed when they abuse these survivors, when they engage in their epic money laundering scams. That's who these people truly are. The face that they put on at their social gatherings and all the rest, that's their false face. And Ghislaine Maxwell, while she might have pulled the wool over the eyes of some of her quote-unquote friends, the rest of us are onto her, and the rest of us understand what sort of bipedal serpent is within our midst. All right, so our article is from ABC News. Headline, Ghislaine Maxwell described as deeply committed to family in effort to be released on bail. This article was authored by James Hill, and Mr. Hill authored the other article that we read when this was first talked about, so I figured for continuity purposes, and considering how in-depth Mr. Hill gets with this topic, I figured we'd use this article to continue to build context about this subject. And if you're not familiar with James Hill's work, you should check it out. He's one of the few in the legacy media that has done a fantastic job with this case. He obviously has integrity. He obviously has a backbone. And even though I think ABC in general is a joke of an operation, that doesn't mean that I believe all of the people that work for them don't know what they're doing, right? My problem with these legacy media outlets is basically in the editorial room. That's where the real problem is. So there are some good writers out there still, right? There are some members of the legacy media that are, good at what they do. But it's far and few between these days. I wake up in the morning and where it used to be I would check, the Washington Post, New York Times, all of the big hitters. I don't even really bother with those outlets anymore, folks. I get up and, I check a lot of independent journalists' work. I'll check some independent content creators' work. And, of course, I'll do a cursory glance through the legacy media to see what sort of gaslighting's occurring. But I don't understand how anyone could look at the legacy media at this point and say, oh, yeah, these guys are the arbiter of truth. They definitely have my best interest in mind. They really want to get to the truth of the matter, and they want to cut out all the BS, and they would just want to tell us the facts. How can anyone look at the legacy media at this point in that regard? When you have people like Glenn Greenwald being purged from the legacy media because he won't get into lockstep with them, folks, we got a big-time problem. But there are still good writers and good reporters that are working inside the monster of the legacy media, and James Hill is certainly one of them. So if you haven't checked out all of his work in regards to this story, you definitely should. He also treated Maria very fairly. So definitely check out his work. If you're not familiar with it, I'm sure most of you are, but make sure you, give him a like on Twitter or follow or whatever the hell you guys do. All right, so on to the article. The husband of Ghislaine Maxwell and more than a dozen of her family members and friends have submitted letters to a federal court in support of an effort to obtain pretrial release for the accused co-conspirator, fellow child abuser, general all-around scuzzbag and bipedal serpent, of the late sex offender, pedophile, Jeffrey Epstein, according to court documents made public on Monday. And look, don't get it twisted, right? You expect someone's husband to try and come to their defense. Write a letter, whatever it is. But this is a whole new level of scumbaggery, right? This dude left his wife, left his kids for Ghislaine Maxwell. Everybody knew what Ghislaine Maxwell was. Wasn't like him and Maxwell have been married for 40 years and she just had the curtains pulled over his eyes and he was so in love with her he had no idea what she was. No, that didn't happen. Borgerson, your cousin from Boston, walked into this with eyes wide open, knew exactly what he was doing, knew exactly the type of serpent he was with. And then this jerk-off has the audacity to write some sort of gushing letter about all of the great character attributes that she possesses. Yeah, that's going to ring well with the world. I'm sure that your letter here, pal, is going to make Judge Nathan just drop everything she's doing and give Ghislaine Maxwell bail. The letters attest to Maxwell's strong, forthright character. Oh, my lord. Really? Strong, forthright character? What's next? Jeffrey Dahmer and his incredible palate at the dinner table? And their confidence that she will not flee. Her attorneys wrote in a renewed motion for bail, which also includes a proposed bond package totaling $28.5 million, secured by 3 U.S. properties owned by Maxwell and her husband, along with other assets of close family and friends. Well, that's all fine and well, right? But my question is, how do they even have these assets? How did they buy these assets? With ill-gotten gains would be my guess. So, how is it that their assets are not seized? I have somebody that I know that's very close to me in my life. They were under federal investigation for RICO laws. And not only were they under investigation, the bitch-ass feds tapped the phone of that person's kids. They also threatened to seize that person's kids' home due to the crimes of the father. Because they said that the kids received ill-gotten gains from a criminal enterprise. So where is that same treatment of these scumbags? They shouldn't have this kind of money. This money should all be seized. If they were drug dealers, it would be seized. What, you don't think that they're taking people's houses in South Central? You better pay attention to what's going on, because that's what they do. Government seizure of property in RICO cases, it's a thing. That's how they roll. They freeze your bank accounts. They make it almost impossible for you to pay your legal fees even. But Ghislaine Maxwell and Scott Borgerson and this crew of bipedal serpents somehow is still not facing that same kind of heat. Ask yourselves why, folks. That's the real question here. That's the 500-pound gorilla in the room. The court filing reveals for the first time that Maxwell, the youngest daughter of the late British publishing tycoon Robert Maxwell, has been married since 2016 and was living what her attorneys describe as a quiet family life with her spouse. Yeah, well, it must be nice. Guess who wasn't living a quiet family life? All of these survivors that were abused by you and Jeffrey Epstein, and all of these survivors whose abuse you facilitated. They weren't living quiet and cozy lives. They weren't living in $1 million New Hampshire getaways. They weren't hanging out in chalets in Colorado. They were busy picking up the pieces of a life destroyed by you. Until Epstein's arrest last year ignited a media frenzy that has ripped the family apart. So it's the arrest of Epstein, the media frenzy, no self-responsibility for Ghislaine Maxwell, none whatsoever. I'm tired of it, okay? It's not the media's fault. This is one time it's not the media's fault. What, should everybody just stop reporting on what's going on because Ghislaine Maxwell's family is being torn apart? Well, what about when Casey Anthony was going through her trial? There was 1 billion reporters parked out in front of her parents' house on a regular basis. And guess what? They should have been. There is a public interest in this case. You don't want to have this kind of publicity? Here's an idea. Don't commit any dumbass crimes. Don't get involved in sex trafficking. Don't kill your kids. It's not very difficult to be a human being that is even halfway productive, all right? Get up in the morning, clean your room, brush your teeth, take a shower, don't do meth, stay out of sex trafficking rings, don't kill your children. Pretty simple, folks. Maxwell's husband, whose name is redacted from the public version of the filing, wrote that the person described in the federal government's criminal charges is not the person we know. Well, yeah, that's true because you don't know her, all right? You know one face of Ghislaine Maxwell, Scott Borgerson. I'm pretty confident when I say that. If you think that she's this loving, doting, fantastic person, you truly do not know her. I have never witnessed anything close to inappropriate with Ghislaine. Quite the contrary. The Ghislaine I know is a wonderful and loving person, her husband wrote in a letter accompanying the motion for bail. Well, yeah, look, let's keep it real. Even Ted Bundy had people writing to him in prison. Even that sick, weird-looking bastard Richard Ramirez had people writing to him in prison. Scott Peterson, inundated with crazy people writing to him in prison. So my point is, there's no shortage of people that can get hoodwinked by these sick, charismatic sociopaths like Ghislaine Maxwell. But if you think the rest of us are falling into that trap, if you think the rest of us are going along with your she's a loving and wonderful person narrative, my man, you done fell and hit your head. Following Epstein's death in August 2019, prosecutors vowed to hold accountable anyone who allegedly conspired with him or participated in his alleged child sex trafficking crimes. Fair, but guess what? I'm not sated. I still have a hunger. My stomach is still rumbling, and guess what's on the menu? Justice. It's time to arrest the other co-conspirators, and once that happens, the prosecution can say, well, look, we're not just going after Maxwell. That kills your whole entire narrative of her being the fall guy. They need to unseal these other indictments, and they need to bring in these other co-conspirators. Let's expand this case, let's put the pedal to the metal, and let's really throw these sons of bitches into chaos. Their attention quickly turned to Maxwell, who had previously been accused in civil lawsuits of allegedly facilitating Epstein's abuse of young women and girls, allegations that she has long denied. She was arrested on July 2nd in a surprise early morning raid at a secluded property in New Hampshire. Boy, I really wish they would have brought the crew from Cops in on this one, huh? Imagine watching Ghislaine Maxwell get arrested on an episode of Cops on a Saturday night. It would be an event. I'd be ordering wings, I'd get some pizza, might even pop a bottle open again. Watching this lady get dragged out of that house, boy, would have been fantastic entertainment. Too bad we don't have that video footage. I would have paid for that on pay-per-view. That's worth a $20 bill. Got all kinds of footage of Roger Stone getting arrested, however, but none of Ghislaine Maxwell. She was arrested, past that. She has pleaded not guilty to a 6-count indictment, alleging that she conspired with Epstein in a multi-state sex trafficking scheme involving 3 unnamed minor survivors between 1994 and 1997. So, again, they really reached into their bag of tricks, right, for these charges. Older charges, but powerful charges. And charges that are going to be amplified when Annie and the other girls get up there and testify. The fact of the matter is, Ghislaine Maxwell is not just looking at a police investigation where they had to recreate the crime scene. There are eyewitnesses in the dozens who are going to testify against Ghislaine Maxwell. So all of this wrangling and all of this nonsense that's going on right now is all fine and well. And it's expected from Ghislaine Maxwell's team, but they're going to really be up against it when she's staring down these accusers and the jury is sitting there waiting to see how they're going to send Ghislaine Maxwell's fate, right? They're going to send it upriver or not. And I would be hard-pressed to believe that anyone sitting on a jury hearing girl after girl come forward and attest to the fact that Maxwell abused them is not going to send her upriver for 1,000,000 years. Prosecutors contend Maxwell not only befriended and later enticed and groomed multiple minor girls to engage in sex acts with Epstein through a variety of means and methods, but was also, at times, present for and involved in the abuse herself. And I think that's something that is left out of this story all too much. You know, co-conspirator, Epstein's madam, Epstein's girlfriend. The madam shit is wild, right? That intones that she is some kind of lady of a cat house who's providing prostitutes. That's not the case. Groomer and procurer are much better titles for her. Or if you want to go the extra mile, feel free to call her a bipedal serpent. At a detention hearing less than 2 weeks after her arrest, prosecutors argued that Maxwell was the very definition of a flight risk and convinced U.S. District Judge Allison Nathan to keep Maxwell locked up until trial. They also faulted Maxwell for refusing to disclose the identity or assets of her previously unknown spouse. Well, look, what is the court supposed to do? If they demand a full accounting of your assets and you're not fully compliant, why would the court think that you're going to do anything else but lie and try and cheat your way through the case? And that's what occurred. They've never been honest about the money that they have. And like I said before, I'm of the mind, and in my opinion, they have war chests offshore in these LLCs and these shell companies. What do you think? They were moving that money around there for just because? Hell no. She has 3 passports, large sums of money, extensive international connections, and absolutely no reason to stay in the United States to face a potential significant term of incarceration, said Assistant U.S. Attorney Allison Moe. And she's correct, right? Now, what the other side's going to be now is, well, she has a lot of reason to stay. She's putting up $28.5 million. She's putting up not only her money, friends and family's money. You know, they're going to make that argument and they're going to pitch it hard. I hope that the prosecutors are ready to engage them in this argument and run roughshod over them in this argument, because there's no reason for Ghislaine Maxwell to be getting out of jail at this point. No reason whatsoever. But Maxwell's lawyers argue in the renewed bail application that she has deep and effective ties to the United States, which she has called home for the last 30 years. Someone like her has no ties to anywhere. She's a national vagabond when it comes to nationalistic pride. She doesn't have that. She has the pride in her organization, in her own consolidation of power and information. She has no sense of being loyal to one's nation. Letters from supporters who have known Miss Maxwell for decades describe her as a deeply committed to her family and obviously very much at home and in love. I don't care about all of that. That shit is nonsense. What, you don't think every single person incarcerated pretty much in every single jail or prison in America could get people to write letters like this for them, gushing about them? But what, it carries more weight because it comes from rich people in so-called polite society? No, it doesn't. Not for me. I don't really care who's writing in. I don't really care who is co-signing for her or who is saying that she's a good person. The evidence is in, and I believe what I see in evidence, not what I hear from gaslighting friends and family. One friend's letter attests to the loving relationship she has with her husband, which I have personally witnessed on many different occasions. Yes, so what? Big deal. My friends that I know had loving wives and kids and grandkids and family members, and they were snatched away from them and sent across the country to some shithole federal prison. There was no hubbub about it. There was no $28.5 million packages offered, nothing. The federal government made their decision, the judge swung the gavel, and that was that. But yet Ghislaine Maxwell, different story, right? Her friends and her family love her, so she should get out. Nope, sorry. If my friends and my family had to do their bit and had to do their time, so do you. The friends and family who have written in support of Maxwell, her attorneys wrote, know her to be the antithesis of what the government has alleged. They trust her completely, including with their minor children. Yeah, just like Glenn and Eva Dubin trusted Jeffrey Epstein with their children, huh? Uncle Jeffy, who was running around talking about marrying 14-year-old Cecilia. So please, stop with the bullshit. You trust your children around Ghislaine Maxwell. Anyone who wrote that should be looked into by CPS. And I mean it when I say that. F-bomb incoming, cover your ears, all right, if that offends you. How the fuck would anyone leave their minor children with Ghislaine Maxwell? Far from the cruel caricature that the press has so recklessly depicted since the arrest of Jeffrey Epstein, these letters demonstrate that Miss Maxwell is generous, loving, and devoted to her family and friends, and that her life is firmly rooted in this country with her spouse, the court filing said. Guess what? There are plenty of sociopaths, maniacs, narcissists who have so-called loving families and are loving parents, and nobody cares, all right? That's not what this is about. This is about her actions, and this is about the risk of her fleeing incarceration and prosecution. Point blank, period. Miss Maxwell would never destroy those closest to her by fleeing after they have risked so much to support her. Yeah, well, she's already destroyed all of these survivors. So what, they don't matter? Now we should worry about her friends and her family? People that probably were aiding and abetting her while she was on the lam. Nah, sorry, I don't care about any of them. I don't really care that they've risked so much to support her. That's on them. I don't know why anyone would put anything up for Ghislaine Maxwell. Maxwell's husband told the court in a letter that he did not come forward as a co-signer to her initial bail application because he and Maxwell were trying to protect their family from ferocious media aggression. Yeah, well, guess what? The media never protected those girls from aggression. So, guess what? The shoe is now on the other foot. The narrative has been snatched from you scumbags, and now the evisceration is on. The full court press is on. And with the pressure coming the other way, and the other side finally standing in the middle of the octagon and biting down on their mouthpiece and firing back, and you don't like it. Like every other paper champion ever, the second you get stuck in the mouth with a hard combination, it changes everything. And that's what you're seeing here, folks. You're seeing some big punchers, right? That's who these people think they are, these so-called elites. These big punchers with all this knockout ability. They get up there, they swing, and they knock you out. But when they get dragged down deep into the late rounds, into the deep water, they don't know how to swim. Her spouse is coming forward now because he is deeply concerned about how she is being treated in the federal detention center and because the terrible consequences that he and Miss Maxwell were trying to prevent have already occurred. Maxwell's attorneys wrote, while also noting that her husband had offered to post everything he owned as collateral to secure Maxwell's appearances in court. See, it's all about material items to these people. What can I put up in court? Oh, I'll put up everything I own in material possessions. It does not matter. Okay, listen to me clearly. None of that matters. What she is being charged with, what she has gotten away with for decades, There's no amount of bail, in my opinion, that should be acceptable for her to get out. If Miss Maxwell were to violate her bail conditions, which she has no intention of doing, she would be leaving her spouse with virtually nothing, her lawyers wrote. So Borgerson, this scumbag bastard, puts up everything he owns, even though he has children, everything he owns, according to this article, to get Ghislaine Maxwell out of jail. What an absolute prick. I really hope that his wife gets custody of these children at this point, because this guy right here, this guy shouldn't be in charge of a garden inside the house, some indoor grown tomatoes. This dude shouldn't even be in charge of that. Never mind kids. In his letter to the court, Maxwell's husband wrote that he believed she had nothing to do with Epstein's crimes. Oh yeah, I'm sure. I am sure, Scott Borgerson, that she had nothing to do with Epstein's crimes. All of these girls are lying. Ghislaine Maxwell's telling the truth, and that's that, right? Give your head a shake, you moron. I pray for Ghislaine's safety. I think we all pray for Ghislaine's safety, right? Nobody wants to see her get hurt. I certainly don't. I want her to face justice. That's what I want. And I'll tell you what, she's certainly on course for just that. I am praying for justice, and I pray for her constitutionally afforded due process, he wrote. With humility and deep compassion, I am also praying for Epstein's victims. What a slap in the face. I certainly don't speak for anyone but myself and my beard, but I'm pretty sure that you're going to get a FU across the board from the survivors with your canned ass wannabe, I feel bad for the survivors. I have compassion for the survivors. Meanwhile, you're there trying to get Ghislaine Maxwell, the bipedal serpent who was involved in just about all of their abuse, out of the clink. Take your BS statement and, Maxwell's marriage had been a well-kept secret until prosecutors made the surprise disclosure about her spouse during the July court hearing. According to the new bail motion, she got married in 2016, the same year she was twice deposed in connection with a hotly contested civil defamation lawsuit filed against her by Virginia Roberts. So while she was getting deposed, while she was under all of this fire, that's when Borgerson married her. And this guy has the audacity to act like he doesn't know who or what Ghislaine Maxwell is. Roberts alleged that Maxwell recruited her at 16 years old into a life of sexual servitude to Epstein. She also accused Epstein and Maxwell of directing her to have sex with a number of their prominent associates, including Britain's Joe Exotic of the Windsor family, on 3 occasions in 2001. Maxwell has denied Roberts' allegations, calling her an absolute liar according to court records. The Joe Exotic of the Windsor family has denied the allegations and told the BBC last year that he had no recollection of ever meeting Roberts. Yeah, we know how that worked out, right? We absolutely shredded the Joe Exotic of the Windsor family yesterday, his weak-ass alibis and his weak-ass excuses. According to a recently unsealed transcript of an April 2016 deposition in the case, Maxwell told Roberts' lawyers that she was then in the process of selling her New York City townhouse, but she answered vaguely about her plans for the future. "Where do you intend to live once your townhome is sold?" asked Sigrid McCauley, counsel for Roberts. "That's a good question. I don't have an answer for you yet," Maxwell responded, adding that she was just couch surfing at the time. Didn't I say that? What did I say about couch surfing yesterday? Zero chance. I'm sorry, there is zero chance. Couch surfing? What are we in high school? What am I on a road trip across the country, climbing a peak in all 50 states and reaching out to all of my dirtbag? That doesn't mean bad people, by the way. That's a term used for people who climb and hike without really having jobs. One of my dirtbag friends' couches? What is this, my life? What is going on here? She's couch surfing now, folks. They got $28.5 million in the kitty, but she's couch surfing. Maxwell's attorneys have asked Judge Nathan to consider the new bail request on a compressed timetable that could, if granted, get Maxwell out of jail before the end of the year. Boy, that would be a great Christmas present for her, huh? And a shitty one for the rest of us. And imagine how the survivors would feel. Nathan has not yet committed to Maxwell's request for a hearing as soon as December 21st. The judge directed prosecutors to submit their response to Maxwell's motion by Wednesday, and she may again seek input from the three women whose allegations are detailed in their criminal indictment against Maxwell before issuing a decision. Boy, I hope she does. Pretty sure Annie and the other gals will have a thing or two to say about Maxwell being bailed out. At the July bail hearing, a federal prosecutor read a statement from one of the alleged survivors who asked the judge to not let us down by allowing Maxwell the opportunity to further hurt her survivors or evade the consequences that surely await her if justice is served. If she believes she risks prison, she will never come back. And I agree, man. Why would Ghislaine Maxwell ever try and face these charges? With all of her means and the big war chest that they have available to them, why would she ever stick around and face these charges? Another alleged survivor, Annie Farmer, 41, publicly identified herself and implored Nathan to keep Maxwell locked up. You know, mad credit and props to Annie for standing up in the face of the maelstrom, put her name on the record, and get on there on that video conference and tell the judge face-to-face the deal. Annie's a straight-up hero, a superhero and a rock star all wrapped into one. What this girl did and what she has done for years and the bravery shown by her, boy, I'll tell you what. There aren't too many people that have that kind of courage, folks. And Annie should certainly be lauded for the courage that she has shown in the face of great evil. She is a sexual predator who groomed and abused me and countless other children and young women, Farmer said. She has never shown any remorse for her heinous crimes, for the devastating, lasting effects her actions caused. And she still hasn't, right? It's all about, oh, Ghislaine, her treatment, COVID. It's never about these survivors. It's never about a 15, 16-year-old Annie Farmer who had her whole entire life shattered the moment these idiots began abusing her. It's always about the bipedal serpent, isn't it? Well, not on this podcast. Maxwell's attorneys contend in their new bail motion that they have now assembled substantial information and evidence that was not available at the time of the first bail hearing, including a comprehensive financial report that pegs her net worth with her husband at $22.5 million and reveals that the couple has filed jointly federal tax returns every year since 2016. Bam! Borgerson is now part of the RICO investigation. Bingo, bango, boom. The motion also takes aim at what the defense team describes as the weakness of the government's case against her. The weakness, huh? This is why I think that the superseded indictment needs to just be unveiled already. How about 40 or 50 RICO charges? Okay, how about that for weak? Lying, smarmy sons of bitches. Her lawyers contend that the government has so far produced no meaningful documentary corroboration in pretrial discovery exchanges, and they argue that the investigation of Maxwell was launched only because of the government's failure to keep Epstein alive to face the charges against him. What a bunch of bullshit artists. If Epstein was there to face those charges, if he didn't die, Maxwell was getting caught up in this no matter what and going to prison. What, you think this just happened because Epstein died and they were like, so we'll get Maxwell instead? No, she was involved. Her fingerprints are all over this, and even if Epstein didn't die in prison, Maxwell was going to jail in a RICO case. 60 charges were filed against this guy, okay? The facts strongly imply that the government only chose to pursue a case against Miss Maxwell, who was not named in the Epstein indictment, because the main target, Jeffrey Epstein, had died in their custody. The lack of corroboration in the discovery confirms that the case against Miss Maxwell was an afterthought and was reverse engineered based on the allegations of 25-year-old conduct from a small number of alleged victims, her attorneys wrote. A small number, huh? I guess we'll see at trial how small that number is. We'll just see at trial when they come out one after one, testifying against you and your sorry ass, disgusting, lying client. If granted bail under her proposed conditions, Maxwell would be restricted to a New York residence with round-the-clock security and GPS monitoring. She would also irrevocably waive her rights to contest extradition from France or England, the two countries other than the U.S., where Maxwell holds citizenship. Yeah, no thanks. Sorry, not the kind of deal I'm looking for. I have no interest, personally, in seeing this lady get bailed out. I just don't think it's proper. There are plenty of other people around the country who should be bailed out. Ghislaine Maxwell, not one of them in my opinion. One friend who has offered to post her $1.5 million home to secure the bond wrote that she was willing to put up her only nest egg for retirement because she knows in every fiber of her being that Maxwell will never try to flee, the court filing said. Pretty bold strategy there, Cotton. First of all, I don't think that Ghislaine Maxwell's hanging out with somebody who only has a measly $1.5 million net worth, okay? So I don't buy that, first of all. In fact, I don't buy any of this. That's right, I said it. I don't buy any of this. She doesn't have any friends. Prove it. What are their names? The court filing said another close friend pledged $25,000 that he had planned to set aside for his own daughter's future. But he is prepared to pledge it for Miss Maxwell, her lawyers wrote. Well, that friend's an idiot too. And if I was his daughter, I'd be steaming pissed. You mean to tell me, Pops, you had $25,000 you were going to put aside for me. But instead, in your infinite wisdom, you decided to help post bond for Ghislaine Maxwell, huh? Guess who is not invited to Christmas next year, good old Dad? Hope you enjoy Christmas with Ghislaine Maxwell, Dad. Oh, I would be so fired up if this was my pops doing this. Thankfully, I have a father that would just as soon see all of these people put underneath a prison as give them anything, so I don't have to worry about that. In sum, these bonds reflect the depth of support that Maxwell has from her family and friends who are risking their livelihoods, their safety, and their ability to live without constant media harassment to support her, her attorneys wrote. Aw, this is me playing the world's smallest violin once again. If you dip your toes into the water, don't be mad if they get a little bite. So these people who were entering the fray on Maxwell's behalf, now I don't think anyone should be harassed, right? But that doesn't mean that they shouldn't be talked about in the media. They shouldn't be talked about on podcasts or in blogs. Once you step into the arena, it's fair game, folks. Miss Maxwell would never destroy those closest to her by fleeing after they have risked so much to support her. Yeah, that's exactly who I'd put all my trust in. Exactly who I would be trusting with my future is Ghislaine Maxwell. Maxwell's attorneys contend that the proposed bail package is exceptional in its scope and that it puts at risk everything that she has if she were to flee. Ghislaine Maxwell is committed to defending herself and wants nothing more than to remain in this country with her family and her friends by her side so that she can fight the allegations against her and clear her name, her attorneys wrote. Oh, okay. Good. So we could expect her to be forthright. We could expect her to, rat on other people who are involved. Is that what you're telling us? No. What you're doing is engaging in some bluster. Maxwell doesn't want to defend her name. She knows that she can't defend her name. She knows that she's not innocent. You all know that she's not innocent. And she's going to look for technicalities to try and make sure that her innocence isn't what the discussion is about, that it's about these technicalities and these loopholes. Mark my words. Maxwell's bail proposal also renews her concerns that the conditions of her confinement at the Metropolitan Detention Center in Brooklyn are putting her health at risk and making it difficult for her to review documents in preparation for her trial. Oh yeah, 13 hours a day. I'm sure she'd be focusing for 13 hours a day if she was at home. Sure she would be putting 13 hours a day into looking at these documents. Yeah, right. Give me a break. She recently spent 2 weeks in quarantine protocol after a staff member assigned to her unit tested positive for COVID-19, according to court records. Miss Maxwell's quarantine period also resulted in cancellation of weekly in-person legal visits. This is likely to continue in light of the spike in COVID infection within and outside the MDC, Maxwell's lawyers wrote. As of the date of this filing, the BOP reports 80 MDC inmates and staff with COVID. All right, well, if you don't have any comorbidities, you're not obese, you're not suffering from COPD or anything like that, you're going to be okay for the most part. The numbers don't lie, folks. The data says that if you're under a certain age, you're relatively healthy, you're going to be fine. Look at Trump. This guy's chowing down more hamburgers on a regular basis than the Hamburglar, eating French fries by the box load. This dude kicked it. This dude's fine. So I doubt Maxwell has anything to worry about on the COVID front. That is just such a asinine argument, in my opinion. Unless you're immunocompromised, I don't want to hear that shit. So Ghislaine Maxwell, the COVID excuse, all this other jazz. Let's really hope that the judge sees through all of this and that the judge decides not even to hear from them about a bail request. But if Nathan does decide to hear it and there is a hearing about bail, I really hope that Nathan, when she slams down that gavel and tells them to kick rocks, does it emphatically. If you'd like to contact me, you can do that at Bobbycapucci at protonmail.com. That's BOBBYCAPUCCI at protonmail.com. You can also find me on Twitter at BOBBY_CAPUCCI. All of the links that go with this episode can be found in the description box. All right, folks, enjoy your day. I'll be back later on with a little bit more.
Le migliori firme con sconti fino al 70% direttamente a casa tua? Ora si può! Con il servizio shopping da casa di MacArthur La Reggia Designer Outlet. Puoi acquistare le collezioni primavera-estate comodamente dal tuo divano. Vai su lareggiadesigneroutlet.it, contatta il tuo brand preferito e completa l'acquisto online. Le firme che ami, mai così vicine a te.